The British Empire. A name that still echoes across history. At its height, it ruled over 1/4 of the Earth's surface and influenced the lives of hundreds of millions. But empires are never born overnight. The story of the British Empire is not of a single man or woman, but of a series of bold decisions, daring voyages, and relentless ambition. To find the answer, we must go back to the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. Nearly 5 centuries ago, England was a small, vulnerable kingdom, surrounded by stronger rivals, Spain, France, and the vast Holy Roman Empire. Elizabeth's court became a breeding ground for adventurers, men like Sir Francis Drake, who circumnavigated the globe, plundering Spanish treasure fleets, and Sir Walter Raleigh, who dreamed of new colonies across the Atlantic. In 1588, Spain sent its mighty armada to crush England, but Elizabeth's navy, led by daring captains, struck with fire and fury. The armada was defeated. With the defeat of the Spanish armada, England's confidence soared. For the first time, the small island nation believed it could challenge the world's greatest powers. This victory opened the seas for English explorers. Soon, merchants and adventurers set their sights on distant lands, Africa, the Americas, and beyond. But the foundations of empire were not built on glory alone. They were built on trade, and in 1600, Queen Elizabeth granted a charter to the East India Company, a decision that would change the world forever. The East India Company began as a trading venture for spices and silks, but it would soon become the engine of empire. Its ships carried not only goods, but power. As colonies and trading posts grew, so did England's ambitions. What began as a handful of voyages was quickly transforming into something far greater, the birth of the British Empire. But building an empire required more than ships and sailors. It demanded money, organization, and above all, ambition. London merchants poured wealth into global trade, fueling England's rise. Soon, England planted its first colonies in North America. In 1607, Jamestown was founded in Virginia, the beginning of England's overseas settlements. Life in these early colonies was harsh. Many settlers died of disease and hunger, but the promise of land and fortune kept drawing more. Meanwhile, across the seas, the East India Company expanded its influence in Asia. Trading posts in Surat, Madras, and Bombay soon grew into centers of British power. Trade brought wealth, but also conflict. England clashed with rival powers, the Dutch, the French, and above all, the Spanish, for dominance of the seas. In the Caribbean, English privateers seized islands from Spain. Sugar plantations turned into fortunes, built on the labor of enslaved Africans, a dark foundation of empire. The empire's rise was not only about trade and war, it was also about vision. Leaders believed they were creating not just wealth, but a global power that would last for centuries. By the mid-1600s, the seeds of the British Empire had been firmly planted. From Virginia to the Caribbean, from Africa to India, England was no longer just a small island nation. But empire also came with enemies. Rival European powers feared England's growth and prepared to challenge it at every turn. And so, the struggle for empire had only just begun. The foundations were laid, but wars, revolutions, and centuries of ambition would shape what came next. In the late 1600s, England transformed again. The monarchy was shaken by civil war, rebellion, and revolution, but through it all, overseas ambitions continued to grow. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 brought stability under William and Mary. With stability came expansion. The empire was now central to England's destiny. England's colonies in North America expanded, with new towns, churches, and ports rising along the coastlines. In the Caribbean, sugar became white gold. Plantations filled English coffers, but relied on the brutal transatlantic slave trade. By the turn of the 18th century, England had become a true maritime power, its navy guarded trade routes stretching across the globe. The Act of Union in 1707 merged England and Scotland into Great Britain. Now, the empire's ambitions carried the strength of two nations combined. Armed with new unity, Britain fought wars against France and Spain, gaining territories in North America and the Caribbean. The empire stretched across oceans. Ports in Africa, islands in the Caribbean, and colonies in America were now tied to London's wealth. But empire came at a price. Rivalry with France would erupt into the 7 Years' War, a conflict fought across continents. In India, the Battle of Plassey in 1757 gave Britain its first decisive victory, turning the East India Company into the master of Bengal. Back in America, Britain gained Canada from France, expanding its control across the New World. By the late 18th century, the British Empire was the most powerful on Earth. Its reach extended from the Americas to Africa, India, and beyond. But the story of empire was not yet finished. Revolutions, wars, and global challenges would threaten everything Britain had built. This was only the beginning. The birth of the British Empire, forged through ambition, trade, and war. What followed would change the world forever. And so, from a small island nation, an empire once rose that reshaped the world. But history reminds us, no empire lasts forever. The question is, who will write the next chapter of power?